Hi, Tim. Thanks very much for the introduction. I would say I'm standing in today for our CEO, Karen Nejame, who's dealing with some health issues this week. So we wish Karen the best, and hopefully I can live up to his professional standards. So let's get into the presentation. For the people that are listening in today that haven't seen ActivePort before, a quick overview of what we do. ActivePort builds, sells and supports a software product that is used by enterprise to orchestrate their connectivity to the cloud. By that, I mean that large customers who need to connect their users, their offices, their equipment, their plant, their factories, anything that needs to connect to cloud services, they can use ActivePort to create and orchestrate that connectivity. So why don't we jump into the first slide? ActivePort is relatively young. We started our journey late in 2019, early in 2020. We listed on the ASX in October 2021, so we're coming up to our 2-year anniversary. You can see from the slide there, we have 290 million shares on issue, some performance rights for executive incentive, and 12 million options. Our primary channel to market is the telecommunication sector. So we typically sell our product first and foremost to a telecommunications carrier like a Telstra, for example, and they then use our product to deliver services to the end users, the end enterprise customers. Jump into the next slide. The business started off with two distinct sources of revenue. On the right-hand side, you can see our services business, which is a traditional information technology support operation that has some significant customers around Australia. And you can see that the revenue from that service business is growing quite strongly. On the left-hand side, you can see our software business revenue. And if you go way to the left, the orange bar in Q3 FY22, you can see that when we started out, the software revenue was 7% of the total business revenue. But as predicted and as hoped, you can see that the software revenue is rapidly catching up on the services business revenue. In our Q3 number that will come out next week, you'll see that trend continue. And we expect very soon that the software revenue will begin to dominate the total revenue completely. Now, the significance of that from an investor's perspective is that software companies generally deliver large gross profits and large EBITDA and good, strong free cash flow compared to a traditional service business. And so as that software revenue line grows as a proportion of our total revenue, investors should see our cash flow generation increase and our EBITDA, our bottom line profit increase significantly. So our focus as a business is to really drive growth in the software side of the organization. Next slide. The competitive advantage of the business is our software product. ActivePort as an orchestration tool creates an environment or an ecosystem that other vendors can leverage to get access to our customer base. There are other products in the software industry similar to that. I think Salesforce is probably the most obvious, where the overarching product is an ecosystem that other vendors plug into to generate revenue. And ActivePort's the same in the telecommunication sector. We can plug in various modules to the ActivePort ecosystem that our customers can use to enhance their orchestration, their cloud experience. What we are finding is that we're one of the few vendors globally in the market that deliver the style of service that we deliver to the telco sector. In particular, the self-service edge to cloud features of our product appear to be completely unique in the market. And that is driving a significant amount of demand from the telcos that we speak to in all corners of the globe. Next slide. If you look a little bit deeper into the product, you can see that we have three distinct facets of our ActivePort software. In the middle, you can see the orchestration features. The orchestration is the core of the tool that telcos deploy first and foremost to manage or provide that self-service capability. On the left-hand side, you can see SD-WAN, and we've recently added another edge connectivity solution called VPN to the mix that the stack on the left-hand side, the SD-WAN product, is built into the ActivePort toolkit, and that's the technology that customers use to connect their users from the edge to the cloud. So that's the connectivity piece of the product. On the right-hand side, which is quite exciting, is our GPU, or our compute module. GPU is an acronym for graphics processing unit. We deploy GPU orchestration capability to the telco industry at the moment, primarily for use in cloud gaming, which is a growth sector for 5G networks at the moment. But those same GPUs are used for AI applications. And of course, people would have seen the recent press and the excitement around products like ChatGPT. Those products use the same GPUs that we deploy to the telco industry for cloud gaming. And so we expect to see a significant uptick in the demand for our compute capability over the next 12 months. Next slide. To give people a feel for the revenue generating capability of the product, in our sector, some companies generate a lot of small revenue amounts from a broad customer base. In our case, we do that, but typically the telco customers generate revenue for us in the multiples of millions of dollars. And so a good example of that is our customer Lightstorm in India. Lightstorm is a startup telecommunications company in the hyperscale networking space. They're funded by I2 Capital out of the US. Their entire product set and all of their customer-facing self-service capability is powered by ActivePort. They have spent upwards of $1 million with us in development to get to live product launch, which they did last month. And then recently this month, they signed a $3 million 10-year licensing deal with us as they move into the go-live phase and start to scale the product out across other countries. They're currently active in 3 countries, and they plan to deploy across 15. And as they deploy into each new country, the license revenue for ActivePort will also increase above that $3 million number. So we're quite excited about the Lightstorm opportunity. It is typical of the discussions we're having with other telecommunication companies around the world. It's similar in capability and utilization, but very similar in size and scale as well of revenue generating potential. And you can see that on the right-hand side there, the Lightstorm deal generated a significant amount of interest globally in the press, especially the technology industry press, because what we're doing in the telco sector is quite unique and very progressive. Next slide. And so this is what's quite exciting for us. And we went into the market 1.5 years, 2 years ago. We knew that there was strong demand for the product, but it's exceeded in some cases our expectations as well, which is fantastic. Through our relationship with Radian Arc, our cloud gaming partner, we have 52 telcos around the world committed to deploying the ActivePort product. We've rolled out 16 of those. And we are starting to generate revenue from the live customers as we move traffic across to our platform. And as we do deliver new innovative solutions to these telcos around network orchestration, customer self-service. We've only just scratched the surface in revenue from this customer base. We have obviously Lightstorm that we spoke about. We're starting to see revenue flow through from the 16 live customers. And we're starting to see significant revenue uptick from projects, in particular with the likes of Telecom Malaysia for their international network subscribers. And so we're excited about the fact that our total addressable market and our committed customer base is well in excess of the customers that we've monetized to date. And I think you can extrapolate the revenue potential from this pipeline. It's significant. Of the 52 committed telcos, there are 750 approximately telcos of similar size and scope in the world. You can see that some of these telcos are quite significant. Airtel, for example, in India with 360 million subscribers, STC in the Middle East with 126 million subscribers. To put that in context, Telstra has around 25 million subscribers. I think the total subscriber base across the 52 committed telcos is in excess of $1.5 billion. And so the deployed or committed deployments for our software at the moment is can't be understated. It is significant and it's global. Next slide. And so looking ahead, we know that the appetite for our product is strong globally. There are very few telcos in the world that we speak to that aren't excited about what we offer. We know that those telco customers can deliver significant license revenue to us quickly. And it's only just the beginning. At the moment, we derive revenue from our software licenses through the telco sector and from our services business. But in this next few months, we will launch our software as a service business or network as a service business called Global Edge. We're trialing that at the moment with a telco in Miami, which is using the Global Edge toolkit to deliver services into South America. And once we get through those trials, we'll launch the Global Edge product as an independent solution, which will add a third revenue stream to the ActivePort business. And because of the inroads we're making into the industry, we're getting significant interest from private equity to invest in the company, which we find quite flattering. And so we know that there is demand from the investor community to fund our scale-up ambitions. Next slide. And so looking back a little bit, our revenue growth is significant, up 51% from Q1, and you'll see a similar ramp in Q3 when we launch our Q3 numbers. And we're confident now that the market has validated the use of our software and the value of our software. We're going into the IPO. We knew there was significant demand, but we didn't have a lot of tangible evidence of the value of that demand. Now we're seeing the revenue flow. And so we're very, very confident that the market has validated. Our expectation is that we've got a unique solution at the right time in the market. We have a very strong deal pipeline, as we've spoken about. We have a total addressable market in excess of 52 committed telcos, with only 16 of those deployed. And so time is of the essence for us. We've got to capitalize on the opportunities now while we have very little effective competition. And so we really are moving from a startup stance to a scale-up stance. Next slide. There we have it, Q&A. Thanks, Tim.
Time for me. Thanks, Peter. Can you talk, when you talk about no kind of competitors in the space at the moment, why is that, and why is ActivePort so kind of unique in terms of its positioning?
There are two aspects to that. The first is that ActivePort as a software product is device agnostic, and by that I mean that a telco could be using any brand of switching and routing equipment, whether it's Cisco or Huawei or Ericsson or Nokia. ActivePort software can be overlaid across any of those products. Whereas most of the software that began development around the same time as ActivePort has been bought by specific hardware vendors, and that makes it takes it out of the general market and makes it a niche product. And so the telcos all appreciate the fact that we aren't welded to a particular hardware platform. We're vendor agnostic. That's the first thing. The second thing is that a lot of the products in our sector have been designed to deal with the internal mechanisms of a telco, not to deal with the customer. Our product is all about customer self-service. And so we're a few years ago, if you wanted to order a network service from a telco or a cloud service from a telco, you would have to call the telco. Maybe 8 weeks later, you get the service connected. With our product, a customer can make those connections in minutes. And so that customer-facing self-service capability, which is really what Lightstorm and other telcos are buying our product for, is unique. We're one of the very few products in the market that can deliver that to telcos at scale.
And when you price those contracts, is that based on the number of subscribers they've got?
Number of subscribers and points of presence. For most of the telcos, the initial license is around their infrastructure. So how big is their physical network? As they start to deploy the software and customers use it for things like SD-WAN and VPN connectivity, then there's an additional revenue stream that kicks in that is all based on number of subscribers. So a telco may spend $1 million on the core license with us, but then every subscriber they add may spend another $10 a month per user for the edge services or the SD-WAN and VPN services that we've got built into the product.
And do these telcos always help you fund the development? I assume you're kind of working in different regions requiring different development. Is that all a part of your model, that development is funded by the telco?
Most of the telcos have got a unique integration requirement. And so it may be a unique type of equipment, a particular network configuration, integration with their billing systems and other internal systems. And so there's always, with the contracts, there's always a development, integration, deployment charge for the telcos, and then that ongoing license and revenue from licensing the product.
And Peter, just one more question, if you don't mind. So can you just give us a little bit more colour on Lightstorm in terms of the deal and what that means for your exposure in terms of expanding into the Asian and Middle East markets?
Lightstorm is just one of 52 telcos that we have committed to the product. And so it's really just an example of the style of revenue we generate. If you look at other ASX companies that do similar things to what we do on the ASX, companies like Megaport, for example, who just do the edge component, they typically generate a small amount of revenue from a lot of customers. So a small amount of revenue from multiple thousands of customers, whereas we generate large amounts of revenue from multiple dozens of customers or hundreds of customers. And so Lightstorm is included in there as an example of the size and scale and scope of the revenue we generate from each customer. As a telco, they are somewhat unique because they're a startup and they've got some new leading edge tech and certainly focused on their customer self-service capability. They're a perfect fit for our product. But equally, the other 52 telcos that are committed to using the product are using ActivePort for similar sorts of applications in their own regional markets.
Thanks, Peter. That's all we have time for. Really appreciate you jumping in and filling in. Have a nice weekend. We'll follow with interest.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim.